So when you're playing with people like Miles Davis or Joe Henderson, there's got to be just amazing things you take away from that.
It's hard to say how much, what other stuff. There's so much that you learn just intuitively, listening to somebody and how they sound and what their emotional vibe is. With Miles, well, with all those guys, one thing I should say, and mention Jaco Pastorius also. He was an incredible bass player and great writer and just an amazing musician that I also played with. They also had a very, whatever got their heart, they went for. They didn't say, okay, let's just play jazz and play. They were wide open. Even Jim Hall, in a lot of ways, that's a surprise to some people because it's more of a traditional sound, but he digs a lot of different kind of stuff. And Joe Henderson, too, was totally into. One time he was at my apartment, Joe, and we were rehearsing for something. I kind of begged him to rehearse, and so he came over. No one thought he would even make the gig, but he came over to the rehearsal, and because sometimes Joe was like that. They used to call him the Phantom, but sometimes he just wasn't there, But he came and rehearsed with me we played for 3 or 4 hours, and we were just hanging, and he was looking at my CD collection. And there were some CDs of John Coltrane, of Joe Henderson, of all great saxophone players, and different guitar players, Wes Montgomery and Jim Hall, and some Mike Brecker, and some different people, and some other stuff too. So he was looking through some other stuff, and he picked out this CD of Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I said, Joe, what do you think of Stevie Ray Vaughan? He said, he used to talk very, he was very well, he knew 7 languages, he was a very smart guy, but he said, Stevie Ray Vaughan, man, was a motherfucker at what he did, man. There was no question. He was wide open to different stuff. All those guys were. And I found that true with all the really great players that I've liked. They have their priorities, but they're into all kinds of music. If it feels good, if it comes from the heart, they're cool with it.
So at what point did you say, geez, I've got what it takes to go out on my own, do my own thing, form the Mike Stern Band?
I started getting together with different people, and I wasn't sure. I figured I need a piano player. And eventually I didn't use a keyboard player. Sometimes I do, but generally I keep it kind of open with just quartet, just saxophone, bass and drums and guitar, and sometimes it's just trio. I've done a lot of just trio stuff. But my first band, it's funny that the guy that was in the band was this guy named Harry Connick. And it was Harry Connick Jr. And he had just moved to New York, and no one knew he could sing. He was more being kind of groomed by Columbia Records. He used to say as being kind of just a new Bill Evans, the piano player Bill Evans, kind of, and he was just going to be an instrumentalist, and they were going to push him and all that stuff. And he was really kind of wanting to play with Wynton Marsalis, but he didn't have any gigs. So I got to know him. He used to come up, we used to jam at my place a little bit. I'd show him some tunes, and there was little Fender Rhodes there. And I asked him to play in my band. He said, well, that's cool. I don't know how to play the synthesizer, at all. And I said, you might need to figure that out. He said, oh, I can figure it out. So he wanted a gig. We didn't have any gigs. I just started. So we did a rehearsal, and then somehow after that, I think I started playing with Michael Brecker, with the Michael Brecker Band. And so we didn't end up doing any gigs. About 6 months after that, and we did a rehearsal, and the whole time Harry Connick was just trying to figure out how to turn the synthesizer on. He wasn't a real electric kind of guy, but he was a sweetheart, really great cat. And then 6 months later, we saw him on the Tonight Show singing. It's maybe a year later. It was more like 6 months, and we didn't know. I remember Joey Barron was the drummer that was playing with me, an amazing drummer, for that rehearsal, and we were thinking about doing those gigs, and we never got any at that point. And there was, Joe. I called Joe. I said, "Did you see Harry Connick?" And he said, "No, I heard about it though. Who knew he could sing?" And so after that, I started doing my own band more. It just took a minute to get it going, and I was just trying different things and kind of a little bit fearful of trying it. And once I got started, and myself and Bob Berg had a co-led band, And once we got started with that, we just hired a rhythm section, just a bass and drums, really killer players. At first it was Richie Morales, who's a fantastic drummer, and Jeff Andrews was playing bass, great bass player. And then it became Dennis Chambers and Jeff Andrews. We did that a lot. And then Lincoln Goins was playing bass, and not Jeff, and Dennis and Bob and myself. We did that for years. And then I just kept going with trio, with different great players, or with quartet.